Morning, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters online. Today's morning devotion is on Psalms 37. So I was advised that we'll be leading morning devotion today. I'm thinking about how I can speak clearly of Psalms that is written with the Hebrew alphabet. Now, we're not too familiar with the Hebrew alphabet, but after we've read through Lamentations, we know that at the start of each stanza is written with the first alphabet in the order of the Hebrew alphabet. Even if it's not arranged in that order, there's 22 verses. So this has given us a basic understanding of the Hebrew alphabet. That there are 22 letters. So today when we're looking at Psalms 37 as an alphabetic poem, then we're going to see how the alphabet was arranged. The basic concept is there are 22 letters. And I want to ask you, well, how many verses in this poem? How many verses are there? There are 40 verses. So it's not as evenly distributed as we thought. Because if it is if it's in an orderly fashion, then there should be 44 verses. But it is not like that. But basically, the structure is that two verses is with one letter at the beginning for two verses. So what's going on? And we have a concept for Psalms 37. They're facing a world with terrible morals and ethics. So the marbles within us will begin to stir because we will feel fruit. We see the wicked prosper. Especially those of us who have the mindset of heroes. Every time we see why the righteous suffer while the wicked prosper, then our heart will feel hard done by. And the marbles within will begin to bounce everywhere. But I recently have an understanding of marbles. Not because of there's an external stimuli that caused my marbles to bounce all over. If I have a marble machine in me, and this machine keeps on bouncing the marbles around, and when there's an external stimulus comes around, then there's an external manifestation of it. If I don't have this marble machine in me, say inside of me I'm an apple, then no matter how much marbles are on the outside world, it wouldn't affect me. So this is a realization, a reflection of ourselves. If every time there's an external stimulus and my marbles will fly everywhere within me, then we need to know this marble machine within us. Say we say that there is a great storm happening outside, and all the disciples were screaming, they were very nervous. They all say, "Lord, save me, we're about to drown." But Jesus was sleeping tight and sound. In Jesus' heart, there's no storm. But it's the disciples' hearts which the storm is raging on. So when they face the storm outside, then their hearts are frightened. But to Jesus, this is the will of his Father God. There's no storm within him. So no matter how great the storm outside is, then he's still at peace inside. So let's go back to Psalms 37. The external world is in chaos. For example, there's the pandemic, there are earthquakes. Then are we shaken within? Before in us, there's an unshakable kingdom. Christ has opened a way with his blood for us that leads straight to the mercy seat in heaven. So no matter how the world tumbles, we know that by these testimonies of faith, and we follow these people who testify the faith, they continue to live under. In the end, we can reach the mercy seat in heaven. And not only that yesterday, but today and forever. So he's our help of it in any time. Psalms 37. Why was the chaotic world described in this acrostic poem? And they encourage us to be still within. Because this is a acrostic poem. It tells us that there are order in life. A life with God there's order. God has given 22 letters to Israel. And we're not keep tossing back and forth between the gaps. We are not dwelling in a gap. We can follow the word God has given us. We can walk in the order of this acrostic poem. And it can resolve the chaos in our heart. For example, verse 1. The first letter is don't. Do not fret. In a life of chaos, this is very important for you to keep the discipline in your heart. That is, do not fret. Do not let fret ferment into you, or else it will get worse and worse. When I know that your marbles are ticking within you, the first thing we need to remind ourselves is, do not fret. We see the Israelites have a lot of complaints. 40 years in the wilderness, many people fall and died. And speaking of 40, our Psalms has 40 verses. That's telling us that their life has trials. But Jesus in 40 days, every day when he is in fasting, he's facing temptation. So he has accomplished for Israel that through fasting and praying, he has overcome and have victory in life. And before we go further, we need to know that each letter from the alphabet looks at 2 verses, covers for 2 verses. But it doesn't finish with 44 verses. If we try to memorize these verses, we become so black and white. Oh, this is such as life. We just need to recite the letters, then we'll pass. There are order, but it's not unchanging. It's not rigid. We said 40 it's number representing the trials in life. Which verse is that there are only one verse and not two verses? Which, for example, verse 7, we see there's only one verse. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. And verse 8 and 9, it's a pair. And verse 1 to 6 is three pairs. But verse 7 stands alone. And then verse 8 and 9 is another pair. And verse 20, let's look at verse 20. It's not a pair. It's just one verse. What's talking about here? Verse 20 is so happened to be the 11th letter in the in the Hebrew alphabet. The 11th alphabet. How many alphabet do we have? 22, right? So the 11th letter is the letter in the middle. And this verse is again, it stands on its own. And the verses that follows are grouped in pairs. Verse 28. There's something special here. 27, 28 is a pair. But in the middle of 28, it's paused. It's stopped. And Hebrew, the 16th letter, is the letter iron. And it appears in the middle of verse 28. Will not forsake his faithful ones. So the first half of 28 is pair up with verse 27, and the second half of verse 28 is pair up with verse 29. They will be protected forever. Or some translation here say wrongdoers will be completely destroyed. It can also be translated it's they will be protected forever. And that's the 16th letter in the alphabet. You can say that this acrostic poem is broken off here. Sometimes our life experiences the same thing. It's not a pleasant experience, but it's part of our life. And the last verse is verse 34. Here again is a verse that stands on its own. Before that, verse 31, 32, 33, it's all pair up. But verse 34 stands on its own. And verse 35 and 36 is a pair. Then what's this verse? This is the 19th letter. What does it mean, 19? It's 12 plus 7. It's two complete numbers, two whole numbers. The 19th letter. That is in verse 34. What does it say? Hope in the Lord and keep his way. Wait upon the Lord. It's reflective of one thing to us. In this poem, the most important singular verse, one of them talks about hope. The other is in verse 7. And in verse 44, that is to wait. How can we live this life that is filled with troubles and worries? hope in the Lord keep his way. This is the most important message from the author. So we've gone through these 40 verses, this poem. Every 2 verses is 1 line. And in the middle there are some changes. Some of them are singular verse. Some of them are broken off in the middle. So even though it's written in a pairs, the verses are pairs, but in the middle there are some changes. So this is an acoustic poem, but it's not rigid. It's not like a can. It's not that we just follow each of the 21 letters, then we'll be finished. Or that we'll have a life where we'll go past many people. Instead, put your hope in the Lord. Now let's look at some of its details. And I have prepared a PowerPoint. Psalms 37. Let's have the PowerPoint up. So here we see the Hebrew letters. Aleph, Beth, Gimel. Now verse 2 is not a letter. It's not an order of a letter. Verse 1 and 2 is a pair. Verse 3 and 4 is a pair. And verse 5 and 6 is a pair. At first it says, do not fret. This do not fret actually appears 3 times. That the author is reminding us again, time after time. Let's see the next page. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. Verse 8, refrain from anger and turn away from wrath. Do not fret, it leads only to evil. So why are these verses paired up? Verse 1 and 2. Do not fret because of those who are evil, or be envious of those who do wrong, for they, like the grass, they will soon wither. Like green plants, they will soon die away. So this is a picture that is painted before our eyes. Right now what we can see causes us to feel very angry. But this life, there's God. These wrongdoers, unrighteous, the wicked, they will very soon be cut down. So it tells us to wait and be patient. To tell us to wait. We will use the Lord. And those who live on the earth will use His faithfulness as food. And be glad in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Delight in the Lord. So verse 3 and 4 is another pair. Trust in the Lord, delight in the Lord. And verse 3 and 4, it's like the opposites of verse 1 and 2. First it says, do not fret, do not have envy. Instead, trust in the Lord, delight in the Lord, and He will give us the desire of our hearts. That is to say, do not fix our eyes on the unrighteous things that are happening around the world. Although there are people who brought property and they buy again. They might buy 10 units at once. And as for me, every year my rents are increased. But still you have delight in the Lord. and He will give us the desire of our heart. We can live on this land. And verse 5 and 6 is another pair. Commit your ways to the Lord, and He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn. Although right now we live among darkness, and that the ways of the righteous has not yet been revealed, but the light of the way will come out. So, our benediction is like noonday. Do not put your focus on others, but delight in the Lord. Commit our matters in our life to Him. And let's look at the next slide. From verse 7 to verse 9 is two pairs. Verse 7, as we spoke about before, it is a singular verse. That is trust in the Lord. In our real text is doom. It means rest. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. So it's not that after I pray, then all the good things will happen tomorrow. Or I pray right now and the good things will come in the next moment. Here it's telling us to wait patiently. Do not fret because of when the wicked carry out their wicked schemes, when they succeed. Verse 8 and verse 9. Refrain from anger. Do not fret. When you see evil, do not fret and be angry, or else we will do evil. We need to have a mindset that we need to wait upon the Lord and we will inherit the land. It's a little while, not long. We will wait, and the wicked will be no more. Though you look for them, they will not be found. You won't recognize the wicked. But we as the meek people who wait upon the Lord, who wait upon Him in silence, will have an abundance in peace. And verse 12 and 13 is one a pair. The wicked gash their teeth at the righteous, but the Lord laughs at them. Now this is a more humorous verse. The wicked will gnash their teeth at them, but the Lord laughs at them. For the days of punishment is fast approaching. If in our hearts we keep on having marbles, we'll think about our heavenly God. He sees everything. He will laugh at those wicked who gnash their teeth. Let's look at the next slide. So here talk about the swords. Verse 14, verse 15. The wicked draw the sword and to slay those who are upright. How does it appear for verse 15? But the swords will pierce their own hearts, although they have bent the bow. But their bows will be broken. What's going on? God would act on our behalf. So in verse 16 and 17, it's a pair. The little that the righteous have, but the wealth of many wicked. You see that they have a lot of mansions and houses, but Although what the righteous have is little, but it is better than the wealth of the wicked, of the many wicked. For the power of the wicked will be broken, even though we are little. But the Lord uphold the righteous. And the next pair. The blameless, the Lord knows the blameless people. We are born, but how can we finish this journey of life? The Lord knows completely. We could roughly estimate what will happen tomorrow, but nobody knows for sure. Suddenly, someone will get a notification on your Leave Home Safe app that you have to then be quarantined. But to the Lord, He knows even things that have not yet come to pass. So we can trust ourselves in Him. Even our inheritance will last forever. And will not be ashamed in dangers. And during the days of famine, you will enjoy plenty. Now, verse 20 is one verse. It's not a pair, it's one sentence. This is the 11th letter, calf. But the wicked will perish. They are like the fat of the lamb. They are consumed, they will go up like a smoke. This is what this verse is telling us. Do not envy them. They are but like smoke, and they'll be gone in a moment. So in verse 21 to 22, this pair. Why did we say the righteous is richer than the poor? Because the rich, they often take out a loan and do not repay it. But the righteous are generous because in their heart they are rich. Perhaps there's limited of what's in his hands, but he's willing to help others. They are blessed by the Lord, and they will inherit the land. These are the righteous. Let's look at the next pair. Here we talk about steps and way. The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in Him. The way he walks, the Lord delights. Let's talk about the 10 Commandments. When God has given us these commandments, it's not to make our life difficult. It's for us to have a way to go on. The laws which we can abide by. That in our life we can walk in the delight of the Lord and the favor of the Lord. And in doing so, we too experience His favor. We need to turn our perspective around from reading the 10 Commandments. It's not there to restrict us. But as we go on this walk of life, it teaches us how to make the right decisions. This is a way that the Lord delights. Though he might stumble, verse 24, but the Lord upholds him with His hand. So let us continue to walk on the path of the righteous. Verse 25 and 26. He is speaking from his own experience why we need to keep such a way. Do you remember what kind of poem this is? It's the poem of David. the Psalms of David. So when it comes to first chapter 37, this alphabetic psalm, a wise psalm, is also a acrostic psalm poem. So we see this wise David is coming to the end of his life. I think he's talking about himself. Verse 25 he says, I was young and now am old. Yet I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. He says he's old now. You can put what I say to the test. When the righteous are on this road, they will not be forsaken by the Lord. God will never forsake us. Though we may have stumbled before, He will lend us a hand. He will show favor to us morning to day. We lend to others is because of the generosity in our hearts. We need not be uptight about it, for the Lord never gives us up. And our descendants will be blessed. But when we come to verse 25, I'm going to show you a series of David's Psalms. PowerPoint, please help me. Let's load the last 3 slides of this PowerPoint. So the first book of Psalms, the Psalms of David, in the last few Psalms, including Psalms 37. We see David has entered into the senior years of his life, the elderly, even towards the end of his life. Like when we read verse 25 in Psalms 37. He said, now I'm old, yet I've never seen the righteous forsaken. This is a golden apple for his life. It's his belief in his life. And Psalm 38 is also a psalm of David. In verse 10, he said, my strength fails me. Even the light has gone from my eyes. It's like he can't see. And verse 11 tells us that in his sickness, his friends and companions avoid him. His neighbor stays far away. They talk about the loneliness of the seniors, that nobody visits them. Next, in Psalms 39. I said, I will watch my ways and keep my tongue from sin. Verse 4. Show me, Lord, my life's end and the numbers of my day. Let me know how fleeting my life is. When we're in a youth, we think our days, we have many days to come. We will not number our days. But when we start counting, when we think about our life's end, how it will pass, the thoughts of the senior have crept out. We consider in Psalm 39, in verse 5, you have made my days a mere handbreadth. Everyone is built is but a breath, even those who seem secure. This is the view of an elderly, especially when they're in their bed, sick. They don't know when the day will come. They think life is just it will just go past like this. Actually, it can be. It can be in vain. Like you can't hold on to it. What degree you have got, it doesn't matter anymore. Where you've been traveling, these are vague memories. If you've been to North Pole, South Pole, you'll be very excited. But when you're sick in the hospital, lying in the hospital, all this is but a. All this will vanish. Verse 6. Surely everyone goes around like a mere phantom. Let's look at Psalm 40, the next chapter. Verse 40, verse 12. For troubles without number surround me. They are more than the hairs of my head. When our life are long enough, if we really need to count our sins, it really is more than the number of our hairs. In Psalms 41. That is the last Psalm of David in Book 1. In verse 3, they say, the Lord sustained them on their sickbed and restored them from their bed of illness. This is a very intimate picture. Who makes your bed for you? You know, when you are on your sick bed and you mess up, and you made a mess in the bed, who will change your sheets and make your bed? The Lord Himself. But the wicked will challenge Him and say, when will you die? When will your name be no more? Verse 8, the vile degrees have afflicted him. He will never get up from the place where he lies. Even my close friend, someone I trust, one who shares my bread, has turned against me. This is the last psalm of Book 1. When I begin to think like this, I'm thinking, have I entered into my senior years? It's as though I read Psalms, I've not noticed these areas before. But now I begin to pay attention to these. And it's not just for myself to notice these Psalms. When we say we serve the elderly and those who are sick, do we know what they think? David has revealed his heart to us, his heart in his senior years, in his last years. And which verse were you up to? Let's go back to Psalms 37. So let's look at verse 27, 28. This is the 15th letter in the alphabet. Turn from good and turn from evil and do good. Then you will dwell in the land forever. For the Lord loves the just and will not forsake His faithful ones. Turn from evil and do good. The meaning is that you've already put your foot down. It's not that they fret, but they've already put their foot down. So it's telling us, turn from evil and do good. Do not focus on your life experiences, but put your focus on God. God is just. The righteous will inherit the land and dwell in it forever. The faithful ones, they are protected forever. Now, we talked about before, the first half of verse 28 is a pair in a line with verse 27. And the second half of the verse is actually 40 verse. It's joined towards the next verse. So it's ayin's verse. So it's not before 28. Not before, but right in between. It has broken it up. Turn from evil. Wrongdoers will be completely destroyed. If we have gone through this intermediate state, or that we've been foolish and blinded and followed the fools, this verse gives us comfort. We need to come back. And the pair after verse 30, it talks about mouths and hearts. Mouths of the righteous utter wisdom, and their tongue speak what is just. In their heart, you need to have the law of God, and your feet will not slip. In verse 32, verse 33, what does the wicked do? They lie in wait for the righteousness and intend on putting them to death, but the Lord will not leave them in the power of the wicked. Next pair. Verse 44. Again, it is a singular verse. This is the 19th alphabet letter. That is 12 plus 7. And it emphasizes to wait upon the Lord, to hope in the Lord. The timing will come. Do not give up on keeping his ways, and he will exalt you. And you see when the wicked are destroyed, and as though it's telling us, the way of the righteous is long. The way of the wicked is short. Do not look at him, he seems to prosper like the green plant, but very quickly they will wither. We say that riches cannot last more than 2-3 generations. It's gone by the 3rd generation. Verse 35 and verse 36, this pair. It has been a great shock to him in his heart. I have seen. What has he seen? A wicked and ruthless man flourishing like a luxuriant native tree. Like a big tree. But he soon passed away and was no more. Though I looked for him, he could not be found. We cannot find him, for he is not a tree of life. Although it seems like it's a big tree, but it will pass very quickly. At the next pair. Verse 37 to 38. We talk about the ending. We said that the great tree will fall. But what about those blameless? They will have a good end. Pay attention to these things. Mark it down. Shemo. To observe. To consider. This is the end. The outcome of the righteous is a good outcome. But on the other hand, the wicked has no future. They will be destroyed. And now we come to the last 2 verses. 2022, the Lord saves. The last letter, the last pair. The salvation of the righteous comes from the Lord. He is their stronghold in the time of trouble. The Lord helps them and delivers them. He delivered them from the wicked and see them. Righteous salvation comes from the Lord. He is their stronghold in times of trouble. Verse 39. Verse 40. The Lord helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them because they take refuge in Him. Due to time, I'll end here. Let's worship our God.